back to the Pack Leader Podcast, season number 2, episode number 2. Brian Blanton, how's it going?
Doing well, Coach. How's it going?
Doing good.
Good.
Pretty geeked up that we finally made it through the preseason.
We did. Ended on a strong No Sheep week.
Yep, and for most people who don't know, October 10th marked the official start of wrestling season. So if you follow Newberry Wrestling on Instagram or any of our social media, along with other wrestling accounts, you probably saw a lot of videos and posts about people just being pumped up that the season's finally here.
Yeah, I know I'm pumped. The 8 hours a week only, and having to lift 3 times a week, only being in the room twice a week, that was starting to get a little old. Glad to be in the room every day, being able to grind, get back to what we love doing.
Definitely. But the guys, they finished strong. We culminated kind of our preseason with what we call No Sheep Week. For everybody out there who knows what Hell Week is, it's pretty much our equivalent of that. We just call it No Sheep Week because we told the guys, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the imposters, those guys who say they're wolves, but, sheep in wolves clothing kind of deal. And I'm proud to say, we didn't find any.
No, we had a very strong showing. Guys that looked shaky at the beginning, were able to come through, finish strong. Guys that maybe we weren't sure about, answered questions for us. It was a good week. It was, saw a lot of growth. Saw a lot of guys sort of wake up, especially some of the younger guys wake up to what college wrestling is. It was a good week.
Yeah, and I think what we learned about the guys is it's a really, really dedicated group, a really tough group. We put them in a lot of scenarios and situations where we made it hard. We made it tough. We wanted to break them. We tried to break them. But I think we learned that our group that we have this year really took the off-season, quote-unquote off-season this summer and got after it. I'm sure a few Coronas were enjoyed on the beach here and there. But at the end of the day, it was very evident that the training wasn't neglected.
Oh, no doubt. I think we're close to a month ahead of where we were last year at this time.
I would agree, 110%. And I think the guys learned a lot about themselves, too. It was meant to kind of break them down, but I think they learned that they're a lot tougher than what some of them might have thought. So it was fun. We kind of culminated the end of the preseason also, if you saw on social media, with this camping trip that we did out at Camp Barstow.
Yeah, it was a good time. A good team bonding experience and a good time for guys to get out of their comfort zone, not just hanging out playing video games or working out, but going out, enjoying a little bit of nature, enjoying some things that are maybe a little new, a little different to some of the guys. And then obviously some of the guys have hammocks and fancy tents and that sort of thing. But, just to see the guys in a different element was a lot of fun for us and I think huge for them.
Yeah, and shout out to Camp Barstow. If you're a South Carolina native and anywhere within a reasonable driving distance of there, it's definitely worth the drive to go check it out. They got these really cool cabin situations is what you call them, where it's not a tent, but it's not a cabin. They got these bunk beds in there where all you got to do is bring a pillow, a sleeping bag, and call it a day. They brought the grills out. We did some archery. Some of the guys hopped in and did some kayaking and boating. So it was a great time, and super excited that we were able to get together outside of the wrestling room and the mat and celebrate some time together. I did end up forgetting the silverware, which was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it happens.
Situation, but we made it. Well, cool. I just want to remind everybody that you can find the podcast on all podcasters. If you're a Spotify guy like myself, it's easy to find on there. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and also on our Newberry College official website. Just got to search Newberry Podcast Hub, but we are available on there. I know in today's society, everyone's on the rip and on the go. So if you want to stream us and don't necessarily have time to pull us up on YouTube and watch, please stream us on the go. We appreciate all the support. Want to keep it moving because we had a really good interview with Cody Garbrandt, and that's kind of the focus of today's episode. But before we get to that interview, Coach, let's talk about these preseason rankings that came out today.
Well, they got us ranked number 2 in the region, behind a tough Lander squad, but I feel like our squad's pretty tough as well. Got some funky head-to-heads where we've won head-to-head, but maybe their guy qualified. One of them is actually a transfer. He qualified at a different school, transferred into Lander, but we won the last matchup head-to-head. Little things like that where I think on paper it's 1 and 1B, more so than 1 and 2. But, Lander's been fielding a pretty tough squad the last few years now and got the best of us in the duel last year, but we got him in the Super Region tournament and, looking forward to another competitive season and reclaiming that number 1 spot.
Yeah, and on the regional composite sheet, we're, like Coach said, number 2. We're behind Lander by about 11 points. But I did kind of want to jump into some of those top 6 rankings. So let's start with 125. They got returning NCAA All-American. He was a JUCO kid, Kevin Radcliffe, actually, who, if you remember Evan Kerrigan last year, put it on him pretty good. But he's ranked number 1 in the region right now at 125 pounds, followed by Saliga from Penn. He's at number 5. Behind Zach Shoup, you got Spitco from Coker and Boyd from Belmont Abbey. So I'm looking forward to climbing the ranks there at 25. Shoup's been having a great preseason, and looking forward to, like I said, chasing that number 1 spot.
Oh, yeah, and Shoop's actually 4. You said 5, but Shoop's in at 4, and he actually had a couple head-to-heads against Radcliffe a couple years ago, knocking him out of the regional tournament, or at least putting him in the consolation bracket. Yeah. So I expect Shoop to climb those rankings and really make some noise at 125.
Definitely. Fast forward to 133, Elijah Husk. It comes in at number 1. Timmy Decatur, who's a returning national qualifier as well, comes in at number 2. And that makes sense. We've lost 2 really tight head-to-heads with Lusk. And, I think over time, Tim's been making those slow adjustments, so I'm excited about that matchup again with them. You got Fielding, who comes in at 3 from Belmont, Kincaid, Emmanuel, Gallivan from Coker, and then Olive from Mount Olive, if you follow the 133 pounds for Super Region 2. Let's get into 141, Coach.
Well, Zeth Brower, defending national champ, obviously he takes the top spot. He's from Lander. And then John Carrianis from Belmont Abbey. He gave Devin Moore some real tight matches last year at the Super Region tournament, and actually a tight one here at home as well. But here's where it kind of gets interesting. Josh Blatt is in there. So Blatt's cutting down to 41. He was at 49 a couple years ago at Belmont Abbey and transferred in. Devin Moore's moving up. But we got Blatt in there at 3rd, and the guy right above him is, former teammate. So that could be interesting. Omar Amingol from Coker, and then Hayden Waddell from Mount Olive, and Brendan Watkins from King round out that batch. But I really think it's a 3-horse race there at 141.
Yeah, definitely, I would agree. At 149 pounds, you got Dimitri Tedley, who wrestled Isaiah Royal in the Super Region 2 finals last year. I think Isaiah beat him by a major decision in the finals.
It was a little closer early, but that was one of those where the lead just sort of started building. But
he comes in at number 1. Behind him is Piccarilli from Pembroke, who's also pretty solid, followed by Pepe, and then Devin Moore, who I do think is, didn't get as much respect here. But when you look at kind of who's a national qualifier, head-to-head matchups and things right there, it's not crazy that he comes in at number 4. You got Tangen, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, from Lander, and then Wilson from Mount Olive. One thing I will say about Devin Moore is he's one of those ones when we talk about our guys spending their summer productively, he's one of those ones that, stayed here relatively close to campus. He was just in Columbia, had an internship at the Fireflies, and was in the room very often with you, was in the D1 room up the road at PC getting after it as well. So look forward to him making some progress and making some noise for himself this season. For sure.
At 157, we got Will Evans, returning All-American from 2 years ago. Last year, late in the season, had a pretty significant knee injury. Nolan Wheeler finished out the year for us at 57, was a match away from qualifying, but actually lost in the match to qualify. But Will, sort of takes the number 1 spot there, which is, huge for him. I think it'll be a nice confidence booster and really some validation for the frustrations he had last year. But, kind of looking back to be 100% and get back at it. Trent Mahoney at King, he was at 149 a couple years ago. Yeah. I think was on an undefeated run that entire season until he had a season-ending injury at the region tournament, dislocated his elbow. Coach, you were his coach then. You could probably talk to that a little bit more. But Mike Vernaglio at Mount Olive and Bryson Ethington from Lander round out the top 4. And those top 4 are pretty. I think they've all kind of had some back and forths. Yes. Last year, and then Will Lowry from Pembroke and Skylar Caven from Belmont Abbey finished out the top 6. But I think that top 4 you can look to see kind of duke it out this year.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised to see us slide into number 4. It looks like at 165. But when you think about the fact that PJ Wunderlich, who's a grad student for us, he came in, transferred from Coker. He was at 57 last year. So it kind of makes sense that he's at number 4 behind Rashad Varon from Pembroke. You got Jake Nicolosi from Mount Olive and Gage Bernal from Lander. And those 4 guys round out the top 4 at 165. But PJ's been getting in the room pretty often for his individuals, his one-on-ones. He's one that comes in locked in every day for practice, and excited for him to get out there and show what he can do at a new weight class as well.
Yeah, and I think he's enjoying being – having to change the scenery, new environment. He's really been working hard and getting after it. So I'm excited to see what he can do for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just to kind of mention those last 2 people, Hunter Haven, who's actually, fun fact, the brother of Caleb Haven, who's a former Newberry wrestler, took 5th last year at Super Region 2 tournament. Helped one of the ones who contributed and helped us bring back that 10th title. That's his brother at Limestone. And then Anthony Sartori from Emmanuel. It comes in at number 6.
At 174, Connor Weeks from Belmont Abbey leads the way. Jack Bond from Lander at 174, and that was the guy that Caleb Spears sort of had a little rivalry with last year. They had some fun to watch matches. Dallin Ewart from King is in at number 3. Caleb Grau from Pembroke is in at number 4, and Dayton Fields is in at number 5. So Dayton's our transfer. He was at Northeast Oklahoma JUCO, 2-time JUCO All-American. I look for him to climb up those rankings pretty quick. This is, in my opinion, a case of new name without any D2 stats under his belt, but he's got plenty of JUCO stats to back it up, and I think he'll be able to climb his way up those ranks. And then Seth Thomas from Mount Olive rounds out that bracket for the top 6. But like I said, I think Dayton can compete with any of those guys, and I look forward to watching him work his way up those rankings.
Yeah, knowing what we know about Dayton and seeing him every day in the room in comparison to knowing what we know with those other guys in the top 4, I like how we stack up. At 184 pounds, we got Logan Hall from Lander. I think he was one of their D2 transfers as well. He might be a qualifier from another institution, but he comes in at number 1 behind Kyle Daly from Limestone. Armando Acosta, who took 5th for us at Super Region 2 tournament last year, comes in at number 3, followed by Scriven from Pembroke, Clemson from Emmanuel, and Christos from Belmont Abbey. I'm sure I butchered that name.
And I look for Armando to be able to make a little bit more noise this year. He actually probably wrestled his best last year after his injury. He tore his pec muscle, had a tough time finishing up the season with his style, so to speak. He's a big horsepower guy, but once he got injured, he kind of had to force him to wrestle smart, and he actually wrestled a little better. So I think being able to kind of put that extra experience in, I could see him beating a couple of those guys, especially, that were close head-to-head.
Absolutely. What we got at 197 pounds?
At 197 pounds, we actually lead the way there. Chris Walton from Newberry, he's our other JUCO transfer. Yep. He comes from Indian Hills Community College out of Iowa. 2-time JUCO All-American again, but we haven't seen a whole lot of him yet because he's been tearing it up on the football field. So he's one of the defensive ends for our nationally ranked football team. They've been ranked as high as 9th. I think we are 17th now. Just climbed back up to 17th, dropped a close one. Both quarterbacks, first and second string, got injured against Carson Newman, caused us to slip a little bit. Got back in the win column last week, moved back up to 17th. But national ranked football team, Chris Walton's wreaking havoc on the quarterbacks. He's got all kind of sacks and tackles for loss. They love him, but I'm excited about getting him back out there as well. And then he leads Anthony Iacovetti from Lander, Jonathan Clack from Mount Olive, Mason Kump from Belmont Abbey, Garrett Steele from Pembroke, and Caleb Wally from Coker. And I'll be honest with you, that's a whole list of new names, including Chris Walton. So 197 could be interesting this year.
Right, and to be honest, I'm wondering to see what Lander's going to do at 197 just because I'm pretty sure Parker has some eligibility.
Yeah, Darius, I mean, the program's not even 4 years old. Yeah, so Darius Parker, I would imagine.
I think they might be sitting on that one.
Yeah, he may make an appearance.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him pop into there. Either way, I still really like our odds there. Chris Walton is somebody we look to come in and be an immediate contributor. At heavyweight, this is the guy ranked number 1, but at the same time, statistically, he was a national qualifier. So Juan Holmes comes in at number 1 from Lander at heavyweight. We actually beat him in the duel when we went to Lander this past season. So we have the most recent win over him, but at the end of the day, he was a national qualifier. Nico Ramirez from Mount Olive comes in at number 2. Devin Rice comes in at number 3. Hamilton Cooper comes in at number 4. Jacob Tellys from King comes in at 5. And then John Carroll from Belmont Abbey comes in at 6. So that kind of is just a little bit of a preview for our preseason rankings. At the end of the day, we tell our guys all the time, a ranking is just a ranking, right? At the end of the day, we all got to show up. We all got to execute. So, but, we just kind of wanted to do our due diligence and letting you guys know what that is and where we stack.
Yeah, I'm excited about the team we got. I think we've got a great chance to, us and Lander are the only two with all 10 guys ranked in the top 6. Yeah. So, I mean, that speaks to itself right there. And, with a couple of those new faces, new names, making their way up to where we think they should. And then other situations like, Josh Platt and Devin Moore flipping weight classes. I think Devin's better now than he's ever been. I look forward to him having a great season at 149, maybe feeling a little better, hopefully performing a little better. Yeah. That could be a big difference right there. So, it could be a good season. I look for us to improve on our ranking, not drop.
Right. Agreed. So there you have it, your preseason rankings for October. Moving on, before we get into this interview with Cody Garbrandt, I'm excited to say, Coach, that on October 20th, we're going to be having our annual phone-a-thon where we launch our annual pin pool. And for those of you who don't know what our pin pool is, it's a wrestling-focused fundraiser where basically you, as a supporter of Newberry Wrestling, can pledge to donate a specific dollar amount per pin that our team achieves. So, for example, if Blanton, as an alumni, Newberry College says, hey, I want to give $1 for every pin that Newberry College gets this year, and we get 70 pins. At the end of the season, Coach Blanton would then make a gift of $70 per pin. If he said it was 2, it'd be $140. If it was 3, you keep going. If you're bad at math like me, pull out your calculator. But basically, it's broken down into tiers. We have an all-conference tier, and that's anything from $1 to $4 per pin. Then we have All-American, which is broken down any pledge between $5 and $9 per pin. And then we have our national championship tier, which is anything that's $10 or more. And they each come with their own incentives. I'll make sure that we get that information out on our website and on our social media so that you can kind of go through that for yourself. But definitely be looking for a phone call from one of the guys on our team when we have that phone-a-thon to launch the pin pool. Last year, Coach, I think we had upwards of like 70 members.
Right, and make sure you answer the phone when we call. If you have any questions, maybe you're just a fan of the program, but you don't necessarily know one of the guys on the team and you don't expect a call, our contact information is on the website. Feel free to reach out to one of us or reach out to Newberry Wrestling on social media. Shoot us a direct message, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you and do that. And it's a fun way to kind of take part, because at the end of the day, it's a way to not only help the program, but to reward the guys for achievements, to reward us for, going out there and working hard and getting those pins, hence the pin pool. So it's incentive for us to go out there and look for those bonus points, look for catching a guy on his back, look for putting them away. And it's a lot of fun. The first year we did this back in 2018 was a lot of fun. We had, we were keeping track. The guys, they'd get a pin, they'd come off and tell us, what number of pin it was or whatever. And it's just a fun thing to keep up with, whether you're a fan or in the program. Again, just look for that phone call, make sure you answer it, and if you got any questions, please reach out.
Yeah, and it helps. Last year, I think it's steadily been growing. Our goal's been able to increase each year because the support has increased each year. That first year in 2018, I think our goal was only like $200 a pin. And so, yeah, like you said, they would get pinned, and the guys would come off and be like $200, $200, And then last year, I think we reached $300.
We eclipsed 300. Yeah, that was awesome.
300 last year, and with our roster being a little bit larger this year, we're setting an even bigger goal of $400 per pin. So, keep in mind that, like I said, we will be making those phone calls next week on October 20th. It's a big goal. It's a lofty goal, but it's necessary. In order to be a competitive team, at the end of the day, like we mentioned on the last episode, you got to be able to travel. You got to be able to recruit. And so this pin pool really does help us supplement our annual operating budget so we can do things like go out to Super 32 and recruit where I'm headed this weekend. It helps us go out to Cleveland. It helps us go out to UIndy and do all those things without having to put a burden on our guys to pay and do things like that. And also, last year's pin pool is mainly responsible for paying for the new competition mat we got. That's just shy of $20,000. So it definitely is a huge fundraiser for us, and we appreciate all the support that we have from last year. All of those national champion pin pool men continue support, along with some other newcomers that are going to join this year.
100%.
So moving on, Cody, Coach, this interview we had with Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Cody was a teammate of ours several years ago, but it was great catching up with him. He's always been a great guy, humble, but just to get some of that backstory, as many interviews as he's done, we've kind of heard it all, but to really hear him piece it all together for us and the ins and outs and why he came, why he left, all that kind of stuff, just was real nice to sort of connect those dots and put everything together and hear it from him and again, just catch up with him.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but it's my first time ever getting to sit down and talk with a UFC champion, so that was pretty cool too.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's not every day you get to speak with a world champion.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So we hope you guys enjoy the interview. Here we go with Cody Garbrandt.
All right, guys, we're here with UFC former world champion Cody Garbrandt. Former teammate of ours, came to Newberry for a short while right out of high school and didn't stick around too long with us. Wish you would have, but at the same time, man, great to see you go off and do huge things. I just kind of want to get it started right off the bat, give a quick little background. Cody actually won a state title as a freshman in Ohio and then was a runner-up as a sophomore, which are both incredibly hard to do in the state of Ohio. It's a very tough state. and then kind of hung up the wrestling shoes in favor of boxing gloves. And obviously anybody paying attention to UFC can see how that tracks. So Cody, tell us a little bit about that, like what led to that decision, and maybe even, fill in some of that backstory a little bit more.
I think that a lot of the, what I was able to accomplish in wrestling from an early age all the way up till obviously I kind of, you would say, retired from wrestling. You never retire, right? Once you're a wrestler, you're always a wrestler. But, I have a competitive level. After, my sophomore year, I was started to heavily, even my freshman, I was boxing still, even younger before that. And I loved that, it was something new to me. It was kind of like when you first started wrestling. You can look back on those days and it was fun. It was new. It was exciting. And wrestling was always my first love. It's something that my mother put me and my older brother, Zach, into, and we just excelled at it. So something that we had as a family, as a brotherhood, and then you obviously what comes into the wrestling, what you learn, the disciplinary side of things, the structure, the sacrifices that you give up to go in there and put yourself through those wrestling practices, through those weekends at wrestling tournaments all over the country, cutting the weight. I enjoyed all that. Something that I always loved to do because it always challenged me as a kid to a teenager to an adult. I think that's something that stuck with me. And then something about boxing, when I started finding that love for boxing, and I had my first fight, it was like that new first time that I was on the wrestling mat. Like you had the wrestling shoe. It just was all excitement too. So I really fell in love with fighting, and I kind of not really let the fire burn out in wrestling because I still had such an immense, love for it and what it's given me into my life and the, things that it taught me. But like there was just something about fighting that sparked this newfound just burning desire to have new goals, and we'll talk about goals. Like I was, said I was a former, freshman state champion in the state of Ohio. Then the next year I wrestled and got a, state runner up. Great accolades, you know what I mean? For me, I wanted to be a 4-time state champion. I wanted to go to D1 and crush it there. And Olympic dreams, I dreamed and had a lot of visions of that. Obviously it didn't go that way. Things happen. You take a different path up the mountain. But like I said, when I found boxing and that fighting, it was so prime that I fell in love with the whole aspect of, you're going in there, and wrestling is as physical as it comes too. I think wrestling is probably it's the hardest sport. If you call it a sport, people, you have to be politically correct, a sport. I mean, it's another, two guys going and wrestling each other, pinning each other, and I mean, without fist fighting or, chokes and snapping your arms. So I think wrestling is one of the hardest, undervalued sport that we have in the world. I think that just from the roots, the grind, everything that comes in between it. But boxing was that spark to me. And then obviously, cage fighting was getting really popular as we were growing up. We had those first Mohicans that, paved the ways for us, from the Gracies, from the Liddells, from, Tito Ortiz, all these guys that, you had Randy Couture, all these guys that you would see and watch and that they had wrestling background. And it's like you saw the wrestlers excel in this sport. And it's like, wow, and a lot of them didn't have boxing backgrounds. They were wrestlers that learned boxing. So for me, I felt like growing up, I was going to be a hybrid fighter because I already had a lot of the boxing skills, the wrestling skills, and then now combining it with the jiu-jitsu and then, obviously getting your kind of style of how you wanted to fight or approach the fight game. So it just kind of, something that I fell in love with. I still hung on to wrestling and, it led me to, after being done with high school wrestling, I was still, going out and doing competitions. Oh, sorry, let me get this. Doing competitions, and I had fights coming up. So that's how I kind of found Ballack, Coach Rebels. I went to senior nationals without wrestling for 2 years and went down there and All-American because I had a fight 2 weeks later. And I just wanted to get that, the competitive drive and those nerves to go into this fight, and so went down there and that's how we kind of actually met them at a restaurant. I was with my adopted father and, stepmother at the time. We were there eating before the semifinals. And I think Coach Revels knew who I was in Ballack, and I was all tatted up, and I think I had a beard then too. So they're like, "Oh, we thought you were just, an older guy. We didn't know that you were, still in the pool to want to come to college." And I wanted to get out of where I was at in Ohio, and I thought South Carolina was as far as I could go, away, and it seemed like a really good fit. But for me, I still loved fighting. I wanted to pursue that, but I was listening to a lot of other people that told me not to put all my eggs in one basket. Even people that I trained with that were on the cusp of coming into the UFC were telling me, go get a college degree, go soak up that knowledge. And part of me wanted to do that. You know what I mean? I wanted to try. I wanted to go and do that and see what I was able to do. But when I arrived at Newberry, first and foremost, I, will say this on record that I have immense respect for you and Daryl. Daryl, I remember first going there before practice or before season even started and going in there, we were just wrestling. I think it was me, him, and Blake and maybe BJ Young. I think it was on a Sunday, and it was just wrestling, just the grind, what I mean? This is what we do. You go to college, you go to class, you wrestle. This is it. So I remember that. And then obviously the first conversations too, you being a leader. Sorry, my dog's going crazy. You being a leader, being a national champion. I remember distinctly what you told me, after one of the practices, you took me to the side and said, "Hey, whatever you need, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be, afraid, I think you saw that I was kind of in the midst of, oh man, can I really do this? The schooling, the wrestling, I don't think I was really all in, but I wanted to give it a valiant effort, at least to say that, I tried, it wasn't for me. And I tried to stick around as long as I could, but that burning desire in my heart was I really want to fight. I really want to do this. And I saw a lot of kids, I guess, young adults my age that were already into the UFC at 18 or on their way, and I was like, man, I can beat these guys. I know I can do this. So it was hard, man. It was really hard, So Newberry definitely was one of those turning points in my life. It showed me hey, this maybe wasn't for you, but there's other alternatives that you can go and do, And I just wanted obviously to go and try it. And I remember calling my mom, I was like, this is going to be the hardest call to tell her that I'm going to withdraw from, college. I remember calling her, I was like, damn. So she's like, all right, we'll be down, in a few days to, get your stuff packed up and, help me drive back home and get all my stuff. And then I'm sitting there at 18 years old, what do I do now kind of thing. And I went to the coal mines, I went and got into classes, got certified to be a coal miner. I just remember sitting down with my mom after that, leaving college, doing the coal mining, getting accepted into it, getting job opportunities. And I was like, Mom, just trust me, let me do this. I know I can do this. Just, it's going to take some time. Give me till I'm 25. I remember sitting down at the table telling her that. And, we fast forward, till I'm 25, sitting in the MGM, signature suites with my family. It was right after I just won the world title. I'm, covered in blood, stitches. I tore my whole knee, but I had the belt. I remember just giving my mom a hug, and I was like, hey, I really appreciate you believing in me and giving me the time and the help and the encouragement of the wins and losses, the setbacks and injuries, because it was a long path to become there. I think that a lot of people saw my my trajectory up towards the top. They're like, oh, wow, I came in the UFC under 2 years, become a world champion. But, we were training and getting ready for this, since I dropped out of college, since I, was in the wrestling rooms and things like that. So people don't see that, lifelong hard work and sacrifice. They see what they want to see, and what they see on TV and the fight week, the fight, but they don't see a lot of that struggle that you have to go through and decisions you have to make. And sometimes a lot of them are life changing, So, Newberry played a huge role in, why I wanted to succeed, because I left another, opportunity. I was like, man, I'm leaving this huge opportunity, a full-time, full scholarship, at a good, pristine, wrestling school, college that we were at, that just produced so many amazing athletes and studs and champions, that I was like, man, am I doing the right thing? It's still I think back on it. You know, I mean, there's not a day that it goes by that I don't think back like, man, what if I stayed at Newberry? You know, there's a lot of what ifs you have in your life, but you know, I enjoyed it, but it helped me push to be a better human, a better fighter, and wanted to succeed because it's like, man, I felt like I left a huge opportunity. I have to make this work. So that's kind of like my story on leaving college, and I never really, you know, voiced it because it was kind of one of those things. It was a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? We've obviously stayed in touch throughout the years, and you know, I really appreciate that. You know, you're such a leader on the team and a captain, and you know, dual sports that you played. A lot of people understand like you're a scholar athlete there. Like you still have to go to school, and that was a huge thing to me. Like where I come from, schooling wasn't you're an athlete. You know, I got there and I remember talking to the guidance counselor. I forget his name at the time, but he's like, "Yeah, you're a scholar athlete." And I'm like, "Oh, I came here to wrestle, sir." But no, you got to get the grades. So yeah, it was a huge just eye opener for me, you know. And then it honestly motivated me to like, I'm given this opportunity, I got to make this work. And yeah, I had a great time in Newberry. It was fun. It was, you know, one of those things that you definitely mature from, you know, being 18, leaving your state for the first time and going and trying a new opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about like where you're at now and what's going on. I think Darrell's probably got a few questions for you.
Yeah. So really, I was going to ask before, do you still keep in touch with anybody aside from BB on the team, or are you kind of just in another chapter right now?
Yeah, you know, I talk with Sean. You know, Sean obviously is a new father.
Yep.
So yeah, I talk to Johnny. Johnny's out here in Vegas. I speak with BJ Young. I was up in Jersey for a while, trained with Frankie Edgar for a few fights.
Yeah.
Saw him, we trained with him a few times. So yeah, I keep pretty yeah, and there's some other some soccer players and baseball players. I mean, we had some good times, you know, like Newberry is a good time.
I saw that.
Columbia a few times, going to Columbia a few times and just making sure Alec was like, make sure you guys come. He'd always make those Friday early morning practice because we know we'd go up to Columbia and just party and then come in hung over. Man,
and then make that new day as miserable as possible.
Oh, the worst. Yeah. I remember the first, I think it was the practices that we did out on the football field or on the practice field and then up that hill right there on that side street. Yep. My God.
Don't worry.
What was the Walmart run? What was the Walmart run?
Yep.
What was that called? Walmart run?
Walmart run.
Oh, man, that was tough. Yeah. That was tough. Yeah. Grind.
It worked out for you, though, obviously. So you said you won the UFC championship 2 years after leaving Newberry?
No, I won. So when I got into the UFC, it was under 2 years that I fought and got the world title in the UFC.
Nice.
It was. So I left Newberry at 18. And I was still amateur, and then I had to go back, obviously, being amateur. Work my way up. I turned 21 when I turned pro at 21, and then I was signed to the UFC. I had a year layoff from my first fight to my second fight, actually. I broke my hand, had to have surgery in the fight. And then I had a symptom of vertigo. The crystals around my ear. So I was probably like 6 months of rehab at the UPMC in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, doing vestibular therapy. And then I had almost a whole year layoff between my first pro fight and my second pro fight. And then from there, I was like, dude, I had a year off. And I went out to Alpha Male, Team Alpha Male. I was like, I'm a year off. Like, I can't just keep holding on to this dream. You know, I saw a lot of my friends, you know, they're being part-time fighters. You know, I was still getting up in the morning and working construction with my uncle, you know, putting in, you know, 8-hour days and then driving 3 hours to go train and doing it all again, you know, for camps, just, you know, make ends meet. And I was like, I'm going to go out to Alpha Male and see, you know, how my talents stack up with some of the best in the world at my weight class. And that was a huge confidence boost for me. And knowing that I was on the right path and on the right journey, how I did and how I was so happy to be out there and that energy that they had, the environment, the coaches, the training, the teammates. And I didn't grow up in a regular martial arts background. You know, I grew up rugged. You know, we wrestled, we street fought, box. Like boxing is different than a lot of like even karate style gyms or, you know, jiu-jitsu. So learning the actual martial arts lifestyle and something that Uriah always preached about and spoke highly on it. You have to do everything right. Like, some of you guys might have, everyone has the same amount of time in the day. It's what you do with that time of the day. If you want to, have a beer and hang out, like do it at the end of the day, like make sure you make training a priority and fighting a priority, because, this window closes all the time. So it was nice to have someone that you looked up to, someone that's done so many things in the sport, to have you after each practice, like, hey, like today, some of you guys might have not, done your best, but you're here, you're working towards that, small deposits daily for the big deposits, on fight night. So having a leader like that was really nice. I think just going out there and training, and I think, like I said, it was a huge thing to go out there and, a big fish in a small pond. How good are you? In there. So like these guys are coming from all over the world. We had guys coming from Australia, Russia, Japan. I mean, just everywhere to get a spot on the team. And just to get under, a watchful eye, and having them guys out there. And obviously, I just took off for the races. I went home after I was there for a week. I told Uriah, I say, hey, man, I want to make it to the UFC and be world champion. Like, this is what I want to do. I just want to know, I remember this talk, walking off the mats. I remember there's this one kid out there that was like getting like a TAM scholarship, they would call it. And I was like, man, I'll beat this dude's ass. Like, I want that scholarship. You know what I mean? Like, and I kept trying to like single-handedly pick him out. And Uriah kept like putting me with the guys on the team that he had nicknames for. So I'm like, after the second one I caught, I was like, all right, he's testing me right now. He's testing me with his guys. I kept calling this guy out. I wanted, because they were all hyped about this guy, but I kept going with his stable of fighters. And then I remember after practice, walking off the mats, he's like, hey, so what do you want to? He said, what's your record? I was like, I'm one of those, a pro. Like, I had a year layoff. He's like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from Ohio. He's like, oh yeah, Lance. I knew Lance, obviously. Lance wasn't out there at the time, Palmer. And I was like, yeah. He's like, did you wrestle? I'm like, yeah, I wrestled. And I was being humble. He's like, oh yeah, how'd you do? I'm like, oh, I was, first I won state as a freshman, second as a sophomore, and then kind of didn't wrestle after that. And he's like, what? And then, he's a wrestler, so his eyes lit up. He's like, first as a freshman, like, that's awesome, state champ, And then he's like, all right. He's like, what's your plans? I'm like, well, man, I got to fight next week. I was like, I'll fly back right after. He's like, all right, cool. He's like, you get the 5-0, dude, you'll get in the UFC. I was like, all right, I had that number in my head and worked towards it. Flew home, fought, knocked the guy out. I think I got $500, and I had ticket sales too. So I was still doing ticket sales. So I saved all my money, flew back, and I was living out of the fighter house. Man, we had sometimes 10 to 12 people in one studio apartment in California living, but you had to rough it. We had bunk beds everywhere, and I'm like, I just got to be out here, to be able to make this happen. And so that was the first. I stayed out there, I think, again for going on to my third pro fight. I think I was out there for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then I flew back home for the fight, knocked the guy out, saved I had all my money, for my money, flew back. I stayed a week at home, see the family, and I flew back, and then I stayed for, I think, a month, and I had my next fight, and that's when I was dropping down weight, and Chris Holdsworth was just completed the Ultimate Fighter TV series, season 18, and he was getting ready for the finals, and this kid was so good, like everywhere, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, black belt, his kickboxing, boxing was just, dude, that dude would fuck me up. Like, he was the only guy that like really I had like no answer for him. Like, I was in there like, I gotta fight this guy. You know what I mean? Like, to go tit for tat with this dude, like, he's just too skilled. He's so smart as a martial artist. Like, he's done this his whole life. He was getting ready. So I wanted to get under his wing. So I kind of got, buddy to with him about the diet and the nutrition, like everything that I was just following him. So I ended up staying where he was staying at for 4 weeks for this fight, and went home, and I was fighting a pretty tough dude. The guy was undefeated. He had a bunch of knockouts too, so did that, trained with him. He was training 4 or 5 times a day, like unreal work ethic, like the just discipline, blinders on, nothing. Like, it was just it was eat, sleep, train for him. And that's, for me, that's what I wanted. I got under his, his wing basically. And he helped out a lot with, the diet and just what to eat, cause I cut weight like a wrestler, like this guy dieted. I didn't know how to diet, per se, like things to eat. Obviously in California, there's a lot of organic stuff that you can eat and be healthier with. So got with him, flew back there, knocked this guy out. Finally, I was getting some good money to where, I had some sponsors obviously helping me too. And I was like, you know what, I can't keep just coming out here for camp. I got to get out here. Like I got to move out here. So I finally moved out, got my own little apartment. It was in the hood of Sacramento, got out there, and I think I was out there and I couldn't get a fight. It was tough. I was out there training. I was trying to fight. I was calling out I was still fighting on basically the local scene. I didn't have any connections to regional, LFA or any other organizations.
And this is after you're 5-0, that 5-0 number, right?
4-0.
Okay, you still haven't get that 5-0 number yet.
Right? I'm like, gotta get this. I'm itching to get this fifth fight. And that's my number to get in the UFC. 5-0, 4-0. They're not really signing people because they only have 4 fights. But everybody I was fighting was good, was undefeated, or had a very high win to loss record ratio. I wasn't fighting tuna cans because I was like, why am I going to fight guys when I'm training with the best in the world? Why am I going to go take an easy fight? You got to, to get to the next level, you got to beat the best. So why not now? I'm not going to have any easy fights in the UFC. There's no easy fights in the UFC. The best is the best here. So finally, it was 2 months I was out there, man, working with this management company, and they just weren't getting me a fight. Finally, I went back home to this organization. And for my 5th fight, it was the first time I fought in Ohio in years because I was fighting outside in Pittsburgh. All my pro fights were in Pittsburgh, but my last one in Ohio was in Canton, Ohio, 30 minutes from my hometown, the Pro Football Hall, the Canton Civic Center. We packed it out. It was a sold out crowd. I was fighting Charles Stanford. I think he was 9-2 or 8-2 at the time. I was 4-0. It's a great fight. Ended up knocking him out with a body shot in the first round, walk off body shot. Awesome. Place was going nuts. Actually, that's the first fight that Uriah came. He flew from China or Japan all the way to Ohio.
Wow.
To corner me. You know what I mean? So that's what his belief was in me as well. He truly believes in that. He flew all the way. I think he was in Tokyo actually, and flew to Ohio.
That's great.
Overnight. Yeah. So it was great to have him there. I had Lance Palmer in my corner as well. Guys that I was training with, grinding with. So it was great, And then I think shortly after, Sean Shelby slid my DMs and was like, hey man, who managed you? I'm like, I didn't have a manager. My mom was basically overviewing my contracts, making sure that everything's fine, helped me sell tickets, still selling tickets. I'm like, hey man, I kind of shook Uriah's hand. I knew he had a management team. So let me reach out to him, called Uriah. And then they went back and forth. And finally, it kind of went silent for, I don't know, maybe a few weeks. And then I went to Austin, Texas. For Joe Benavidez was fighting Dustin Ortiz, and Joe took me out there to help him out for the week, cut weight, train with him, move around with him. And I ran into Shelby he was eating lunch, and, just was introduced myself to him. He was like, hey, so you want to fight in the UFC? I said, yeah, so I'm here. He's like, all right. He's like, 3 weeks, you good? And yeah, and I wasn't training. I didn't tell him I wasn't training at the time. Oh, and I was antibiotics at the time, and I was like, I hope I passed medicals. I'm like, yeah, that's good. I'm ready to go. But I remember flying home from Texas, and I was I got in so late Sunday night. I got in 2 or 3 in the morning, and I forgot to take a picture where my car was at the airport.
Oh, no.
But I was so excited. I was like, bro, I got to get some sleep. I got to train. I just got signed to the UFC. I was so excited to get back to Team Alpha Male because I know it's now you're in the next level with these guys. You're in the UFC with all these guys that are there fighting. So I was so excited. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I couldn't find my car. Literally, I had 2 suitcases. I had to carry all my luggage and all my clothing as well. So I literally put my suitcases under this truck, and I kept just running up and down, hitting the alarm on my car. And I was it was probably 2 hours I was doing this. I could not find it. Almost gave up. I was I was walking to the front. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have help finding my car. I go right to the front. It was right at the front when you're leaving the gate. So I'm like, so it was just my nerves and excitement. It was so cool. Like I remember, getting signed to the UFC, going to the fight. I was fighting Marcus Brimage, and it was great. I remember, the whole week of the fight, just being calm, just like, this is exciting. It was all new to me. I remember I had one interview that week, because no one knew who I was. It was it was Brett Okamoto from ESPN now. He was one of the biggest guys. He gave me the time to interview and just kind of do my story. And, I got my UFC gloves the night before, and I was like, dude, this is the real deal. Like, we're about to go fight at one of the biggest cards, John Jones versus Daniel Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
So it was awesome, man. It was awesome in Las Vegas, and it was a good journey, man. Like it was fun to get to that, and then obviously climbing the ranks and just being something that you sought out to do since you were young to accomplish it. And I have still so much left in me to do. Obviously health comes first, and I'm just looking forward to get back in there and just climb back up the mountain. It's going to be a different path this way, but I've done it before, so I'm just excited to get back to it.
And we're excited to see you get healthy, man, and get back in there too. I know we kind of were talking about it a little bit before we started the call, but you were supposed to fight UFC 61 and kind of got to get healthy, like you said. Health comes first, so we'll be looking out for that to happen.
Yep.
Switching gears a little bit though, your father as well. Got a son, Kai is his name, yeah.
Yes. Yep. Kai.
How old is Kai?
He will be 5 in March. So he's 4 right now.
Okay.
Yep, he's this Wednesday is his 6th week in wrestling program. He goes every Wednesday.
Nice.
Bro, I love it. So fun. Like, and that so father is so exciting. B can validate this, but at the age that he's at now and him training, it's like he's like in his wrestling stance. He's doing his wrestling shot. He's doing double legs on me. Like I'll be walking around the house doing stuff around the house. He'll just like double leg me, or like. If I tell him try to correct him in ways where he's acting out, I'm like, you don't do that. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you want a double leg? I'm like, oh man, like you can't not laugh at it. It's like it's so cool to see him. Like I just sit back on the side and just like if this is something that he wants to do, I would love it because what wrestling has given to me as a person, as a human, what it showed me to do. Values that I still do today, just from having that structure in my life and that dedication and sacrifice. So it's cool to see him at 4 years old going and wrestling. He wrestled with Chase Pammy. Chase is outstanding, D1 wrestler from Cal Poly. We're on the international tour scene for a while.
Nice.
He's out here at Gold Rush Academy in Las Vegas.
Okay.
That's great with him. So it's fun, man. Like being a father is it's amazing. The days are long, but the years are short. And it's, he's another fuel of motivation for me.
That's awesome, dude. And I gotta ask too before we let you go, what because I was kind of looking at your Instagram and I see you post a lot of no love bullies. What's that? And kind of talk about the inspiration behind that. And
so I got with the no love bullies, I started that. Huge fan of. I've always had pit bulls growing up, and a lot of people misconcept them as pit bulls and bullies. Bullies are completely different. Obviously, they have pit bulls in them to make their pedigree. Back in the 80s and 90s, they were bred, but bullies are more bone densified, bigger, heavier dogs. Like an American pit bull, 50 to 60 pounds, and they have high drive. These dogs, American bullies, are bred to be family and show dogs, so they're bigger, they're lazier, like they don't have high drive. Some do, obviously. Some have more drive. But I got into it. I got when I had my son, I wanted a dog because I traveled a lot, prior, pandemic with fighting and things like that. So I wanted to have a dog that looked like it would rip you apart, So I got the bully, but they're the sweetest dogs. I never had any of the dogs, human aggressive. But how I got into breeding was I bought off a breeder that was supposed to be a golden standard in the breeding community, basically. And the way that I got one of the dogs in health and just basically how that was taken care of, it was just a horrible. I was like, man, if I can, help out, change the game, help the dogs become better as a breed, healthier, health testing them, making sure they're not they're not getting overbred and just overused in that. So I kind of started that with my family. My mom runs it. She's the same. I mean, she literally takes care of all these dogs, vets appointments, feeds them, loves them, nurtures them. So yeah, we started that No Love Bullies. We've been about 3 years now that we've been in, I guess, business. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, I actually have another bully coming here in a few weeks that I just produced. I have one. He's running around here somewhere. He's probably outside, but he loves being in the pool, jumps in the pool. So you probably heard him earlier. But yeah, so No Love Bullies, this is a passion of mine, something that I love to do, enjoy to do. I'm actually going to go back to Ohio in a few weeks. I work out with my uncle, my boxing trainer, Robert Meese. He's the one that kind of built me from ground up. So I go train, see my family, see my dogs. It's kind of like an unplug for me from, obviously now I live in Las Vegas, and it's just a whole different atmosphere out here. I don't drink or party, but being out here is just, I survived my first summer. We just moved here in January. So, it's good to go home and just, sometimes go down those streets that used to play, backyard football and just remember those little things, see some friends or see some old teachers that you see. Like, I enjoy that, from going on like vacations, and I like going home. Home is where you make it.
Yeah, and I know you're a big Browns fan too. Even though it can be disappointing at times, I am as well. So I feel for you.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a substitute Raiders fan. I train with a lot of the Raiders players at my facility that I train Product Well-Being. But I'm a diehard Browns fan. You can see I'm rocking the Cleveland, the Guardians now, no more Indians. The Guardians, they're in the playoffs against the Yankees. So yeah, I got to root for my home state. Obviously, Buckeyes, dude. Buckeyes they carry us every year in some capacity. We can always rely on them, the great faithful.
Right. Awesome, man.
Let me throw one more at you real quick. I know folks can definitely do a little homework on their own. We don't have to take up too much time on it, but just to kind of recap and really put a highlight on, you're not just a great fighter. You're obviously a great dude. I mean, we've stayed in touch all these years. You started breeding dogs basically to improve their situation. I mean, everything's on the up and up, but just real quick, real brief, give us the Cliff's Notes version of the your relationship with Maddox and how that all transpired.
Yes, definitely. Maddox, it kind of transpires back to going to Newberry as well. Maddox was a 4.5, 5-year-old kid that was diagnosed with leukemia in my hometown. And I was living in Cleveland at the time. I was up there training. So I was, it was like 2 hours away. And I was up there. My brother reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, did you hear about the Maple family?" That's his last name, Maddox Maple. I'm like, "No, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh, he's diagnosed with leukemia." He's like, "For your next fight, you should do rally the town, do like a support cause for him." I'm like, "Oh, of course." So I ended up, getting to know the family. Reach out to Mick, his Maddox's father, on Facebook. It's like, "Hey, we'd like to, I got a good following, from the hometown and all over the state right now. I got a big fight coming up. Like, let's, I would like to donate the proceeds of my ticket sales, shirt sales to you guys for, whatever you guys need, medical bills or, if you want to take a vacation, whatever you guys need. I know, it's where I'm from, it's a small town community, and we all come together with, tragic events or, events like when I won the world championship. They had a huge parade in my hometown. It was awesome. So small knit community, we come together. So I reached out to him and kind of on Facebook, and then it was just when he was early diagnosed. He's like, "Yeah, once we get back home, he's able to have people come over. We'll let you know." I stayed in touch with him over the next, few months. And finally, he reached out to him, "Hey, like Maddox is feeling okay to be able to have, people come over." And so I went over and met him. Stayed there, talked to him. The kid didn't say a word the whole entire time. Like, he just was like, looked at me all the time. I was covered in tattoos. Like his dad tells a story. He's like, I think Max was a little freaked out. He had a lot of tattoos, but like, once Cody left, man, that's all he talked about. And so Max, we did the fun, the support fight for him. And each fight, it wasn't until my third pro fight that he was able to walk me because he was so sick. Sick with leukemia and doing the chemotherapy, that he wasn't able to walk. So he came to every fight from my third professional fight all the way until I won the world title, even after I came to the ones too. So it was just like one of those bonds that we had. And, he had about 6 months left of chemotherapy, and his dad called me. And we always would talk. I was in Sacramento at the time, fast forwarding, stayed in touch with him, FaceTime and whatever we could, when I come home and see him, I had to get him from school, take him out of school lunch, we go to dinner. So his dad called me, and it was kind of disconcerting, tone in his voice. He's like, "Hey, I don't know what to do. And Max won't take his medicine. He just wants to give up." He's like, "If there's anything you can say to him that can turn his little heart around." And I just remember calling him, and I was like, "Man, what am I going to say to this kid? I'm kind of like, I was in the mats. I was just got done with training. I was like, I got to call him right now. Like, he needs to get this done." And with FaceTime, I, told him, like, "Hey man, like, you work so hard. We're right there." Like, I was on the cups of being on the UFC. Like, we're doing this together, man. As I always said, we never go to battle alone. Me and you, like, I need you. Like, who's gonna walk me down carrying my banner? He would carry his he had the ribbon, the orange ribbon with 922 on it. It's our area code that he would wave when he was walking down. I was like, "Who's gonna carry the banner? That's your position, man. I need you in my corner. You're my soldier." And I said, "Let's make this deal." I said, "Let's make this pact." I said, "You make sure you wake up, no complaints, take your medicine. You got 6 months left, and you're going to beat this." I said, "I promise you, I'll make it to the UFC, and I'm going to take you to all my fights. All the UFC fights you want, wherever we're going." Fast forward 6 months, this kid called me and took his last dose of chemotherapy, August 20th, and called me and said, "Hey, now it's your turn." So that lit a fire under me. Like, I was 5-0. I was like, man, like, and that's the same time I was just grind. And I think, like, kind of like gives me goosebumps thinking back on it. Like, it was at that time in my life, I was 5-0. Like, I was frustrated. I couldn't get anyone to fight. I'm right there. I'm like, why am I not getting the call? I'm knocking all these guys out, I'm in devastating fashion. But once he called me, I was kind of in that kind of like, not going through the motions, but I was like, man, why am I training so hard if I'm not going to fight? But once he called me and told me it was my turn to keep the end of the pact, it just lit a fire under me. And then, I think 3 months later, I was signed to the UFC fighting August, September, October. Yeah, I was, signed to the UFC 3 months later, and then fought in January. And he was there. It was the greatest thing to do. Him having that, last dose of chemo that he took, and then obviously me, lighting a few under me at my fire and going and getting it, and then having him at every fight. And we had a sponsor, Todd Meldrum. Real quick story on him. I was kicked out of his bar. He had a bar in a local surrounding city. Kicked me out of a bar for a fight. I was not even 18. I think I was maybe 19, 20, one or two. And I knocked his bouncer out because his bouncer tried to come. It was a huge, crazy scuffle thing that I wasn't even in the fight. My friend got kind of jumped. So long story short, I knocked his bouncer out. The cops came. He totally didn't have any video. Let me go. And he's like, "Hey man, I don't know of you too well, but you're doing some good things around in the neighborhood. I want to get behind you." And then fast forward, he was one of my biggest sponsors. He paid for Maddox's family to come to all my fights in UFC, bought their hotels, flights, tickets. Without him, it was a collective group, and I'm super thankful for Todd to be able to do that, to be able to have this experience with Maddox. And man, it was just great to have him along the journey. He's now a sophomore in high school. He's 6 or 7 years into remission.
Okay.
So doing well. 4.0 student, perfect attendance. I went back last school year with my son. He's in drama. He likes to do plays. Went and saw one of his plays, and just flourishing in life, man. I'm so happy to see him doing so well.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And a great note to end on. And like Coach said, probably one of the biggest testaments to the awesome person you are. And it's really cool just kind of hearing you put the pieces together, your time in high school and Newberry, that transition into your professional career now, fatherhood, and really everything else that you're doing. That's awesome. So it's an honor to have you on the show. Me and Blanton are always going to be rooting for you and us here at Newberry.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. I need some Newberry gear.
We got
rep.
We'll make it happen.
Honorary for a little bit. I guess I can rock the stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, man. I appreciate the time, guys. It was always good catching up to look back on, the journey where you come from now. I remember just like the wrestling rooms, so it's good. And I really appreciate the support that I get from you guys in Newberry. I would love to come back down, getting some wrestling practices. That'd be great for this next fight. So that'll be good.
Let us know, man. We'll make it happen. Good luck training and get healthy.
All right. See you guys soon.
Yeah.
See you soon, bro.
Cody, what are some takeaways and thoughts you got on that?
Just, like I mentioned before, still humble, still the same guy that, it was kind of one weird thing. I didn't really want to bring it up in the interview, but when he came in his freshman year was right after I had won an NCAA title, and to this day he still calls me champ. And it's like, dude, you're the world champion. like you're champ. I'm just Blanton. So no, great guy. I love keeping in touch with him. It's been cool keeping up with him through the birth of his son. When he met and married his wife, those things like that. He kind of, we're in each other's lives for the big moments and just keeping up through that. But like I said, just sitting down and hearing the whole story, A to Z was really nice, and being able to hear his version of everything and some of that stuff was eye-opening and clarified some things, and so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. And the story he shared with his connection with Maddox and him having leukemia and them kind of going through that whole process of him going through that final treatment. I mean, you could literally see the emotion in his eyes.
Oh, no doubt.
That's real. That's not for PR. That's not for anything, any kind of show. So just an awesome, super humble guy. And I'm really glad he gave some time to be on the show. It truly was an honor to have him on.
Oh, yeah, and just one quick point with Maddox. He kind of said it, but if you didn't really know what he was saying, it kind of flew by unnoticed. But Maddox actually led him out from the locker room to the ring for all those UFC fights up to and including the World Championship. So, that's just awesome to take a kid who's, been through so much and, battled cancer and won the battle. And then, that kid, probably 10, 11, 12 years old at the time, leading the about to be world champion to the ring to go win the title. Can you imagine being him? I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to have to go through what he did to overcome leukemia, but to be able to, be on that scene, be in that setting, that's awesome.
Right. So that was awesome. Cody, thanks for giving your time, man. We definitely got to get this guy some gear.
Absolutely.
We'll make sure we send some.
It's on its way.
That football moved up from number 19 to number 17. We have particularly strong investment in Newberry football just because we always do usually, but especially because Chris Walton's playing, one of our main contributors as well and a super talented football player. So it's fun seeing him out there get after it. I think we play Catawba.
Yep, Catawba.
Okay, Catawba this weekend. So looking forward to picking up another win and keeping that streak going. Other than that, on the wrestling side of things, as far as SAC news goes and just Super Region 2 in general, Newberry College has agreed to continue our associate membership status with the Conference Carolinas in the sport of wrestling. For those who don't know, we're kind of a hybrid right now because some SAC teams and some Conference Carolinas teams don't have wrestling, and so we have an associate membership status with them. There has been a lot of conversation going on about the SAC being able to eventually sponsor wrestling individually separate from the Conference Carolinas. But for right now, we've agreed at least for another year while Allen is somebody who could be, or an institution who could be a viable candidate, continues along their process of becoming a Division II program.
Right. I think, if I'm not mistaken, both conferences are like one or two members shy. So as teams continue to add and as the conferences possibly continue to grow, we're within striking distance of both conferences probably being standalone. But as of right now, it's a good system. It helps us have a more competitive conference. It helps us have more teams to compete against, and as of right now, it's a good thing. So I'm not upset about it.
No, definitely not. Along the way of general news for Newberry College, something that we've been really excited about here is that the Life Happens Wolves Pantry is finally open. It's an initiative that Pastor David Kaufman started really a year ago in terms of just when he got here and took the job, he was aware of this need that people, they cut the ribbon on that last, I think it was on September 29th, and it's something we're really proud and really excited about. There is information on our website if you want to go read more into that, but there's also a link on there where you can make cash donations or donations online, rather, to help that initiative continue to go. And there's also, for any students listening in Wiles Chapel, there's several, and in Holland Hall and in Weber House, there's several stations across campus where you can go donate non-perishable items. Along the lines of Newberry College news as well, we we are excited to celebrate Duffer Diversity Week. It's actually our 10th year doing that, and we're pumped because that's going to start on October 17th. It's basically a week where Newberry College puts an emphasis on celebrating diversity and inclusion. We're all about that here at Newberry College, and we encourage our student athletes to go be a part of those events. So some really exciting things going on campus, aside from all of the buildings and things that are being built right now.
Yeah, it's a definitely a huge time of the year, and to me, it's the first week that it feels like we're in school. You know, stuff's going on. Wrestling seasons have finally started officially. Duffer Diversity Week, there's events going on all week, all over campus. I'm actually teaching a college 101 class where yesterday's presentation or Monday's presentation was on diversity inclusion. Dr. Peggy Barnes-Winder put together a thing last year, a big presentation, so I showed that to the classes.
They let anybody teach nowadays.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
Parents do not. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, it's that time of the year where football season's. You know, we're in the meat of it. Nothing's real new anymore, so things are really starting to get to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of wrap up here, a couple quick reminders. Any Newberry College alumni out there, if you wrestled, even if you didn't necessarily graduate, but you were a part of the program, remember that we are having our alumni weekend in conjunction with homecoming on October 28th through the 30th. We're going to kick off with a fun, just kind of welcome at Bar Figaro downtown.
Yep.
Did I say that right? At 3 p.m. just as a welcome meet and greet. Beverages are on us, so come on down and hang out and say what's up. And then after that, we're going to walk right over to the Harrington Street facility for our annual Scarlet versus Gray Inter Squad. You can find the rest of the schedule online, but after that Inter Squad, we're going to come back down to campus for a free concert, and the weekend is going to be packed. That next day, we have our tailgate where you can come out and get some free food and beverages as well, and obviously, hopefully, we get that W against Limestone.
Absolutely, and I know you mentioned not necessarily just alumni, but if you were part of the program, and I would extend that to, you know, any former trainers, any, you know, close friends of the program. You know, this is a program-wide event, not just, you know, you didn't just have to throw on a Newberry singlet. You know, Mike, you're invited too.
Yeah. You too, TJ. Yeah, and I mean, it really is. It's about, for us on this particular weekend, just getting together. I mentioned last week or last month on the previous episode that, you know, we're in a pretty unique situation where we can go back between me, Blanton, and Cy, who's still here on campus as well, and literally call or text just about anybody who's come through Newberry Wrestling. And so we want to make sure we're taking advantage of that opportunity and continuing to bolster the relationships that we've established, because moving forward, we just think that's super important in terms of being a brotherhood and a family, and making sure that the support that we have for our program is where it needs to be. I also want to add, it's going to be maybe one of the few times where we're not asking you for money. So come on by. You know, no, it's free. Like I said, everything is going to be covered, and it really is just about getting together and having a good time. So we hope you can make it.
And just to kind of put a cap on that, I mean, the Cody Garbrandt situation and decided to pursue another opportunity. You know, we're still close. That interview took no effort. I mean, we didn't have to. It was a text straight to him. He's like, "Yeah, man, you tell me when. I'm down." So those are the relationships that we love. You know, we like having contact with guys, you know, who came through the program, and you know, we're personally invested in these guys. That some of them were our buddies because we were still on the team, and even now, like, we recruit these guys, we invest a little bit of ourselves into them, and then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that there's hard feelings. So, you know, these are the relationships we like to have, and we want, like Coach said, have that brotherhood, have that family dynamic be strong.
Yeah, so we appreciate I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Ernest Allen, who is absolutely killing it for us on social media right now. He's kind of helping out just in an effort to build his resume and his level of experience as well, wanting to go into the I guess communications, social media content manager type area. You know, his volunteered to do some things for the team, and it's gotten some pretty strong engagement online. So thanks, Ernest, for all your hard work as far as that goes. I know he just kind of jump started a TikTok and with Mikey's blessing and some other things like that. So we appreciate all the work you're doing. But if you're not following us on social media, please go do that. We do have an Instagram, we have a Facebook, a Twitter, and now a TikTok too. So, you know, hop online, find all of those, and make sure you stay connected. We'll see you next month for next episode. Thanks.